Thank you, Bo and Britt. It'll make this so much easier to come up after that. So a different perspective, because I obviously wasn't Peter's blood. I was his sister-in-law. My name's Diane. I am Debbie's sister. And as most of you all know, they are childhood sweethearts. So I had the pleasure of having Peter in my life since the early age of 7th grade. You can't think of Peter without thinking of faith. We've heard that from both of them. He certainly was a man of faith, and his goodness was felt by many. But sometimes I think the word faith as in the phrase, leap of faith. Debbie certainly took a leap of faith the first time Peter winked at her in the rearview mirror while she was a passenger in the back seat with another date. Then she took another leap of faith when she blindly went to the airport with a passport, luggage packed by my mom and I, and no idea where she was going on their honeymoon. Well, that made Switzerland much sweeter, especially sweeter than Swiss chocolate. She enjoyed it. He always loved to surprise my sister and take care of her. He did a great job with that. This leap of faith continued with Peter's many entrepreneurial, adventures and car purchases. Well, her leaps of faith weren't as strong with those car purchases. But Debbie always trusted Peter to have the ability to provide for her and her boys a beautiful life. Side note, to those of you who knew my mom, he did indeed eventually own a pot and a window to throw something out. If you know, you know. That was my mother. Peter was truly our family. Although that had to grow a bit from his first encounters on Bath Street, Peter was a man of the world at his young age of 16, and our parents and our 4 brothers sitting right there, they were not too sure about his smooth talking ways for their sweet, innocent 15-year-old sister and daughter. Craig, were you okay with the gas he took out your boat? But he quickly grew in all of us and became a true family member that we all turned to for advice, favors, and love. Well, except not Uncle Stu. So many wonderful memories. Mardi Gras to Charos, snow skiing and Butterfingers Day, boating in Perdido, advice on car purchases or repairs, countless meals from his restaurants, generosity beyond measure. Driving lessons, well, that one was for me. I just wish he had taught Kayla how to drive. I don't know who she's going to call unless she acts over mailboxes, not once, but twice. Cars were definitely a passion, of course, besides his family, Debbie, and Faith. I believe he had a spreadsheet documenting over 60 cars he had purchased in his 62 years. He actually had more cars than his age. So how can this be real? How can this truly be a eulogy for our beloved Peter? I realize many of you all received updates throughout the 5-week hospital stay, so please bear with me while I recap a bit of that journey. Peter was in Oxford's ER in the evening of May 18th and was admitted on May 19th. It was not a quick diagnosis, but he was finally given a diagnosis of AML leukemia on 5/28. In fact, when he received that diagnosis, his response was, well, we finally have an answer. This leukemia is an aggressive form of leukemia, and the chemotherapy started the very next day. In fact, it was a continuous 24-hour-a-day for 7 days, the first 3 of those with 2 actual chemos. It was a tough battle. The cancer attacked his weakest organ first, his lungs. So his already compromised immune system was there becoming more distressed, and he was rushed to ICU the day after his diagnosis. Sadly, he was put on a ventilator on day 2 of his 25-day stay in the ICU due to respiratory distress. In fact, let me take a minute to say how wonderful the experience was for the family at the main campus Ochsner. I know I saw some of them here earlier. I don't know if they're still here, but it was incredible nurses and doctors. The first week in ICU was not only difficult for Peter's journey because it was the first week of his chemo regimen, it was a week of many special dates for the Bassils. 5/25 was the 6-year anniversary of Blake's passing. 5/30 was Blake's heavenly birthday, the day he was put on the ventilator. 6/2 was Bo's birthday and Debbie and Peter's 39th wedding anniversary. And it was also the first day we had the family meeting to talk about his decline that was going on. But the ICU, what did they do when we came out of that meeting? They surprised Debbie. She didn't know what she was walking down the hall for. We walked into that room, they had her favorite cake, they had a plant from the chaplains, they had the room decorated, and they even had a bow tie made from a face mask for Peter and a sign made so she could celebrate her last anniversary in passing differently than just a normal day in ICU. That will never be forgotten. He overcame so many obstacles while in ICU, such as multi-organ dysfunction and sepsis, yet it was just too much for his lungs to handle. We were given the gift, like Britt had mentioned, for 9 days of communication when he was off of the ventilator and able to mostly nod as a response, but did utter those few words like good. One of those words was good when Britt told him about his recommitment to Jesus. And Debbie asked him 4 questions. Do you know where you are? He said yes. Are you in pain? He said no. She said, do you love me? Of course we know that was yes. And are you scared? And he said no. That's right. He said no, he wasn't scared. And I think he wasn't scared because of you. Because y'all allowed him to know not to be scared, because the better part of this dash is the second part with Jesus. And although we all had prayers being said and prayer chains asking for healing, Peter sadly was not going to be healed on this side. However, we did see some pretty incredible blessings. One of those was Britt's ability to connect with the many families in the waiting room and establishing so many relationships. Britt truly has a gift to help others, and I believe this is just the beginning for that vocation. I'm so glad you did. Britt, Bo, and Lindsay were virtually at the hospital daily and for hours on end. Their dedication to Peter will always be remembered, and Debbie didn't leave that hospital at all, except for a few hours here and there. She even had her hair colored in the waiting room. That wasn't even in here, I just said it. Meals, prayers, errands, laundry, taking on her workload. Elle were pivotal roles in helping the Bassil family. I also learned what an incredible company that Debbie works for, Donor Case Management. They treat her so well, and she did not have to worry about what do I need to do, go to work or stay with my husband. They made that decision easy for her. That was a gift. So in conclusion, I would like to add one more leap of faith. One of the biggest leaps of faith that Debbie trusted Peter with was how to navigate life after the passing of their middle son, Blake. It has not been an easy path at all. But as Peter said, with the grace of God, we will handle one day, 1 hour at a time. That sound advice from Peter will sadly serve Debbie and her boys well as they begin this next journey that God has put before them. They have a huge family of supporters that include blood relatives as well as friends, and we will all be there for Debbie and the Bassil family. Love you, Pete.